Welcome to Tech Talk Nation, talking about the latest tech, industry news, and hot topics. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Visit our website at techtalknation.com.
Good evening and welcome to Tech Talk Nation. I'm your host, Matt Fitzgerald, and tonight we have a great show for you. We are going to be talking about a bunch of stuff, including a lot of cool stuff with Apple, some stuff going on with Microsoft, some privacy concerns that have just unfolded in the last couple weeks, as always, our obligatory NFT articles, and some new information about Google's store that's going to be coming out. We have some cool news about Tesla, and we have a really cool article to end off the show tonight. So, without further ado, we are joined once again by Matt Grislow. Thank you for being here, Matt. How are you doing today?
I'm doing phenomenal, Fitz. How you, man?
I am doing well. It has been a very busy week for both of us, as we have chatted kind of before the show here. And there's a lot of news that's come out this week. Wouldn't you say so?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. Today is probably a little more heavy on a few subjects, but a lot has come out about those few areas and topics. So glad to get into it with you, and as always with the rest of Tech Talk Nation.
Alrighty, well, without further ado, let's just get started here. First article we have for you today is about Apple's AirPod Max and AirPod Pros. Last week, you'll remember we mentioned about the Apple Music lossless service that they were starting out. Well, if you have any of these, it doesn't matter because you're not going to get it. Apple basically said that they're creating this higher tier, but they aren't taking care of the people who have already bought these headphones, but they will use this on the HomePod Mini and the HomePod. So you have two kind of different classes of devices here, in my opinion, that kind of are different with the Apple devices and how you're using them. So basically, I don't know how I feel on this one. What's your thoughts?
So I think, I'm not sure if we touched on this last week. I mean, it was very clear, I think, to anyone who's watching or listening that in my discussions with you two and Ryan, that even I was kind of not very knowledgeable on, lossless audio. And I think that also rings true to the standard consumer, right? They thought when Apple announced that they're going to have this high fidelity music streaming, that they'd be able to take full advantage of it no matter what kind of hardware that they were listening on. And unfortunately, it's not the case. A lot of people, including myself, use AirPods. Actually have the other AirPods here too in a stupid little leather case. And I can't take advantage of that new service. Granted, I don't use Apple Music, but I'm sure there's a good amount of people that do, and that we're really looking forward to this, especially those who purchased the $500 plus AirPods Max. And so, yeah, I could see it kind of being pretty discouraging to some people, but I think it's good that Apple kind of clarified their stance on it, and did come out with more of an official statement, saying what does and what doesn't work. My HomePod Mini, I guess, will be supporting it, but again, I don't use Apple Music, so it won't matter. Also, one thing to know, if you use the 3.5 millimeter to audio jack with your iPhone, you will be able to take advantage of that because it does support that functionality and those features. But yeah, unfortunately, if you're using any sort of wireless Apple products, Bluetooth Apple products, you can't take advantage of the lossless audio. Unfortunately, I believe the AirPods Max has some sort of cable you can use if you can, but it won't work. So yeah, kind of disappointing for people that were looking forward to it when they heard the news. But it's good that they did come out and clarify it. So we'll see in the future if they include support for it with some of their other devices. Obviously, it's very difficult and almost impossible to do with Bluetooth, but we'll see.
Right. Well, you did mention you don't use Apple Music with that, but I know you, and you do use Spotify. So you'll be happy to know Spotify is going to be launching a HiFi music service. Could be imminent, as a user spotted an icon in their iOS app. This is a complete direct response to Apple for launching their own hi-fi music service. And I mean, I'm super happy about it. And the one thing that I did find interesting is all of these articles were written, like the first one was on T3, then we had one on Gizmodo, this one's on 9 to 5 Mac, and basically all of them are saying the same thing. They're like, this is only going to affect a certain amount of users who have very expensive equipment and love their music with a passion and want to listen to it a certain way. If Ryan were here
Oh,
today, and of course he couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but basically that people like Ryan would love this because he has a DAC, he has all sorts of pro audio equipment. I have a nice headset. I mean, I do have a microphone and stuff like that. But I am no way whatsoever as advanced as a lot of people who are true audiophiles. So,
yeah, actually, that's you surprised me with this article because I didn't know you were gonna show us one. And I hadn't seen this yet. This is it's cool. It's good that they're realizing their competition and gonna be putting this out again. Like you said, it's not gonna benefit everyone, especially with more and more people moving towards Bluetooth and wireless earbuds and headphones. But it is good that Apple Music now has competition in that space of hi-fi audio, and it just makes sense for Spotify to do it, right? If their competitors doing it, they should too.
definitely, definitely. That's how you stay relevant. That's how you gain more market share. That's how you're staying. You got to keep up with your competitors.
Right.
Speaking of keeping up with your competitors and just being a good company as a whole, Apple is releasing their new software update. They're issuing an update now warning to all iPhone users for iOS 14.6. Long story short, this fixes a couple of issues with WebKit, which allows you to basically become a access the kernel just by loading a couple of websites. Long story short, if you have an iPhone running iOS 14, consider updating it. I highly recommend it. That's kind of interesting on that one. But Matt, you sent in this video here. I actually just watched this, but it is a YouTube video about privacy on iPhone, and I know you wanted to touch on this one, but
Yeah.
I don't want to show the entire thing because this is Apple's intellectual property. But long
Well,
story short,
you can take the music out and show it, because the music is the copyrighted part,
well, still it's still their property. But
and but you don't have to show the whole
yeah.
thing.
Anyway,
I guess I
guy,
can walk through it if you'd like.
sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So Apple is really big on privacy right now. They've been pushing it for a while, and with the new release of, I believe it was iOS 14.5, they pushed out all kinds of new privacy features and tracking features, which a lot of companies like Facebook were not happy about. And so they put this ad out to kind of explain to the consumer what is going on and what has been going on their phones and what they've now implemented on their systems in order to mitigate that. So I don't know if you'd like to play some of that now.
Well, it's the thing I found interesting about this video is it just kind of shows what's going on in a way. So like this guy's at a coffee shop, people start following him, more people start following him. His like spending history is shared with a bunch of people. The banker gives it to other people, more people start following him. Uh and then it keeps on going on, going on. And then it really goes the thing that I really like about this is they go see who tracks your information, ask app not to track, and then all these people start disappearing. And I think that's a really, really powerful um, ad for Apple. I applaud their marketing department for
Yeah,
this
yeah,
service here.
yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I think this really does a good job of showing the average consumer what's going on with your device in the background. You don't see it. You can't, look into menus and things to find it. I mean, I guess you can all the way in settings, but typical people don't do that.
Right.
And so for Apple to come out and say, hey, this is what happens when you go to a coffee shop, when you access your information. Other people get access to it. And we're trying to mitigate that. We're Apple, and we want you to be the owner of your data, and we don't want anyone else to infringe on your data.
Right.
or get your data when you don't need to. So I think it's really cool. I think it's really good on Apple for that, and I know that other companies are going to be more and more unhappy with them as this we sort of see the fallout of this new iOS. Well, I guess now the old iOS update with 14.6 coming out. But yeah, I love that ad. I think it's great, and it really does a good job of hitting home how important not only privacy should be to you, but how important your privacy is to Apple and how seriously they take it.
Right. Right. Definitely. And we say how good marketing is for that ad in particular. In my opinion, this next article we're going to talk about is a little bit of a blunder on their side. Apple's excuse for no AirTag type technology in the new Siri remote is it's too thick to lose in your couch. Uh, Tim Twerdall says the Apple TV remote doesn't need this technology because it's too big to get stuck. Long story short, he basically said that. I don't think that's the best technology because, at least in my experience, remotes find a way to get anywhere. I once found a remote stuck in between the two sections in my sectional, like in between the two pieces. So,
Yeah, especially someone who did buy the new Apple Siri remote for the Apple TV, which I just got the notification it's coming tomorrow. So kind of
oh,
interesting
should have
timing
had
on
the
this
show
episode.
tomorrow. Gosh darn.
I know. So I can go in on it next week and kind of compare the two previous remotes and this one, show you the differences, and give you a good honest review how I like it. But
Definitely.
yeah, that was the first thing that I was thinking of, especially coming off of that, because that wasn't the first product announcement at that event. The first product announcement at that event was the AirTags, and so again they were pushing the whole U1 chip about how awesome it is, especially with this new product. And then they unveiled the new Apple TV, the long-awaited new refresh remote, and of course, of all the features or the new features they added, the one they didn't was the U1 chip. I don't think it would be that hard to implement it. I really don't, especially with how thick it is. It wasn't like they're trying to save, space or try and minimize the size. Because that was a big complaint of a lot of people, and especially this one remote is supposed to be pretty thick, or thicker than the old one. I lose remotes that have AA batteries in them in the couch cushions. Still, it doesn't matter how thick or thin they are. They get lost. And with Apple's, proprietary tech with that U1 chip, it would have been so easy for them to implement it. I'm sure there are going to be people who are going to be sticking like AirTags on there via like double-sided tape, or maybe use other tracking little things that have adhesives on them. I know Tile makes one. It's like a little button size. But yeah, that's the one thing I'm not really happy about. I wish they would have included it, and I think it was a really poor answer to the question. I hope they include it in the future.
It'd be nice to see, that is for sure.
Yeah.
Next article we have for you today is iFixit had a new teardown of the new M1 Mac. Long story short, basically, this is what it looks like on the inside. I remember we wanted to take a look at this, kind of see what was going on. There are two fans here, if you'll notice, that they're venting out the bottom of the device as a whole. It looks like the speakers are here and here, and then you have a fan here and here. Uh, iFixit is kind of notorious for wanting things to be easier to repair, all the right to repair stuff, and they ranked this this Mac a 2 out of 10 for repairability score. Um, I completely understand why they did this, and I know why. Everything is all soldered. Everything is it's not serviceable. The only parts that are is the ports, according to this article, and how iFixit has taken a look at that. Uh, and I don't know. I mean, I'm always a very much so proponent of, if I'm going to get a computer, number one, I want it to be serviceable so I can do whatever I want to it and prolong the life of it. And number two, I want it to to be able to me like to just upgrade it too. Like there's going to be a time when that PC is going to slow, or that Mac or whatever I buy is going to slow down to a point where it will take some effort to bring it back up to speed. And whether that be putting like an SSD or a faster SSD or better RAM or something like that in the computer, I always want that. And it just irks me so much that this is the new trend. Thinner is better. No, serviceability is better, in my opinion.
Yeah, you have a good point. I think two, and these are not original thoughts. Some two things that they mentioned in that article. Two things that stood out to me were the M1 Mac, iMac, got the M1 chip, right? It has now more integrated parts into it than the previous generation, and more so than other competitors in the market. And so that's another reason why they probably did give it a lower score. Understandable, but also, I mean, iFixit is in the market, or at least, they're in the business of showing how serviceable things are, and really getting good teardown explanations with good reports for how you can service things. The M1 chip's only a year old. We don't know really, and Apple, I'm assuming, doesn't, unless they've been testing this for years and years and years. I don't think they really know how long some of those newly integrated pieces on that chip are going to last. So it's going to be an interesting, I guess, test case for, I guess, specifically a computer, this iMac, going forward. I don't know. I guess the other thing I was going to say was, but yeah, it's interesting to see, and really cool to see the internals of this computer finally. Actually, a good interesting thing to see is, again, all the components at the bottom. There's nothing much behind that screen except for some big heat sinks, and I think some connectors as well.
Right.
Which you could also say, well, they could have taken the chin out and they could have put the pieces underneath, a screen, but Apple wanted it to be thin enough, so it is what it is. But
Right.
I think it's cool to see the insides finally. Again, I understand the score that iFixit gave, but considering the fact that this is a whole new system, we don't really know how it's gonna age, and they've been saying how a more integrated, what is it, the RAM and
An SoC, a system on a chip.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, some of these other parts that are newly integrated in ways we haven't seen before in other consumer electronics. It's going to be interesting to see how these things age over time, and how they perform, and if repairs need to be made, how expensive it's going to be to do that.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. In other Apple news too, WWDC is coming up on June 7th. So gonna be interesting. Long story short, they got some keynotes and workshops. Just keep our eyes out for whatever may be coming. It's cool. Other side note, this new trend of floating heads. I've seen this in like several different things. This just creeps me out. I don't know about anybody else, but that's
Wait,
just a side
trend?
note.
What do you mean trend?
I've seen this on like probably a good 5 other commercials that are on
Well,
TV in the Chicagoland area. Like
but
floating heads doing something.
exclusively Apple though, or no?
Oh no, no, not Apple at all, but just like in
Really?
general, I just think it's creepy. So yeah,
Oh, I thought you were talking exclusively about the
no, 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 no,
Apple
no.
emoji heads, because I think they're the weirdest thing when they first got unveiled. I think when I got my last phone in whatever year is when the iPhone 10 came out, I thought it was the weirdest thing, and I still don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't know people that use that a ton. Um, yeah, it's kind of
Yeah,
odd.
it's
One
creepy.
side note for the WWDC, for the second year in a row, it's going to be fully virtual. So there will not be any live attendance. And typically, as history has shown us, the first day, usually that event is for Apple to unveil all of its new products, or at least its new software. So the new Mac OS, new iPad OS, iOS, Watch OS, any updates to their software, and possibly, potentially, some new Mac stuff. So we'll see what happens there. I'd be curious if they would be unveiling a new iMac for power users, or possibly new MacBooks with the M1 chip. We'll see.
Definitely, definitely. Well, one thing that definitely is not going to get unveiled, it's actually going to get sunset, is Windows Internet Explorer. Well, shed a tear for Windows Internet Explorer. It's going to be retired on June 15th, 2022. and Windows is going to force everybody over to Edge. So pour one out for Internet Explorer, the OS or the internet browser that was used to download Chrome. Alrighty, moving on. Microsoft is going to be pushing into the growing grocery tech market with a new deal in China. Long story short, they partnered with a company in China called Hanshou to collaborate on cloud-based inventory and basically like store automation software for stores. And I'm not a huge fan of this. Microsoft is trying to get into markets for everything software related, period. I want them to stay what they're good at, make a nice OS, do your word processing, and call it a day. Like, do your core business applications in your operating system, call it a day. Stop going into all these other markets.
I mean, Microsoft's a big company, man. It's not like, Tile, where they found their niche, with a small tracking accessory. They're a big company. Just like, Google and Apple and Facebook. They all want to do something else. They want to do something different, adding to their kind of portfolio of things they do. I guess I don't have a problem. I mean, Amazon has their stores, their retail locations.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I mean, granted, you could argue this back and forth, but one of their core markets, what they started out was retail. So I could see that being a natural flow. With Microsoft, they started out as software, and now they're going into retail software. I understand it's software still, but still, like, you're going into a different industry that has its own thing, does everything else. It has its own big market leaders in software. And I think it's just another attempt by Microsoft to take over another industry and stifle competition within said industry. Kind of similar to how you had those lawsuits when Microsoft released Microsoft Teams and Slack, another communication platform, was not happy about it because they just stole like 80% of the market share or some arbitrarily high number from Slack just right off the bat. So
let the consumers choose. I'll let the consumers choose. I mean, capitalism is proven time and time again that
if Microsoft
you let the consumers decide and dictate what the companies ultimately will be successful in releasing and selling. If a product doesn't do well and flops, then it's a flop, and the company stops selling it and making it. If it does well, they continue on and improve it.
Right. The only problem that I have with this is Microsoft has to make it competitively priced within that market. Like when they released Teams, it was a free add-on to something that a lot of companies already had. So why would they pay Slack like $10 a month per user for this thing that Microsoft now does for free? So I'm just hoping they don't do something similar to that. So we'll have to just wait and see. Definitely. Alrighty. In some other stories, we're gonna kind of go rapid fire real quick on this. NASA,
as if we haven't already.
I mean, I want a shorter episode today. Personally, our last one was super long.
Our last one was super duper long.
Yeah. NASA tracing the source of mysterious fast radio bursts sending signals to Earth. Long story short, using the Hubble Space Telescope, they were able to trace the location of 5D space signals. Just basically in a thousandth of a second, these powerful blasts of energy generate as much energy as the sun does in an entire year. And basically they just show kind of where it came from in a galaxy far, far away. Super cool. Way over my head. Seems interesting. Props to you astronomy people.
Yep.
Next article. This is an interesting title. Thanks to CNBC for this one. Yes, it's going to be a hot vax summer. Long story short, this article is hypothesizing and kind of saying that dating apps are going to become more popular after COVID times, when people are going to be kind of like out and about now during the summer, and people want to date. And basically, the largest apps in the US announced that they are banding together in support of COVID-19 vaccines and creating these kind of like badges that you could put on your accounts saying that, hey, I got vaccinated, or you should get vaccinated, and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see. I I appreciate the effort. I'm not sure how far it's going to go, but we'll see. So, any thoughts on that one, Grislow?
Uh, that's not gonna stop me from swiping right on a girl, or I guess causing me to swipe left on a girl. I really don't think so. I'm vaccinated. I got the Moderna gang. I got the Moderna
Pfizer gang. I
shots.
see how it is.
Hey, at least you're not J&J.
Oof.
It's not gonna stop me from doing swiping how I want. And I'm sure other people think the same way. But there are plenty of people out there, that can at least use that for some sort of peace of mind. Now, I'm not really sure what the verification process on that is. I'm not sure if you can just slap the badge on your, on your profile, or if there's some sort of verification process for if you've been vaccinated. I mean, health information is very sensitive. There's a lot of laws regarding that. There's a big, privacy thing surrounding it. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, it sounds like it's being more on the onus of the people who are on these apps, and not really like a very verifiable way of doing it.
Right. It doesn't mention in this article that there's going to be any form of verification for this. It looks to me right now that they're just going to be like just more generic, like get a vaccine or something like that stickers. So we'll
Mm.
see.
Oh, okay.
We'll definitely see.
I'm not gonna be putting those on my accounts.
Who knows? Who knows? In other news, and this is actually a pretty big story here, the Department of Homeland Security is going to be issuing its first cybersecurity regulations for pipelines after the Colonial hack. And thank you, Grislow, for sending this in. I was
Yep.
able to give this a read. And the thing that I find the most interesting is the people who are going to be in charge of it is the TSA. We're putting the TSA in charge of this. Long story short, from what it sounds like, basically, infrastructure providers are now going to have to disclose to the federal government when things get hacked, and basically trying to figure out some of the stuff surrounding that. Basically, if you're critical infrastructure, um, you should probably let the federal government know when you get hacked. This is a really good read, and I'm not sure if you have anything else to mention on this one, Grislow, but I am happy to finally see the government giving a damn about about cyber attacks, because this is a very big problem.
Yeah, I am. I mean, as full disclosure, I'm a very limited government person. That's just kind of my philosophy. But I think in this case, it's definitely needed, especially with the impact that it had on the country. I mean, you heard so many stories about people driving 8 or 9 gas stations, couldn't get gas. Gas is kind of already high. The price is already high in the States. I think it was like 309 somewhere where I was, and it's not even high here compared to places like California, where it's crazy high, and it always has been, or at least more expensive than the Midwest here in Indiana. Nevertheless, I think it's a good move. I guess it caught me by surprise that this is their first time doing stuff like this. You'd think that this sort of critical infrastructure would have already kind of fallen under their radar and been taken care of. And it's kind of unfortunate that it took a mass critical event for something like this to really happen. But I'm glad that it is. It is happening.
Yeah, right. There's definitely organizations out there, and it was more or less recommendations. It's nothing really policy per se of like, hey, you need to do this in the case of this thing happening. But like there's organizations out there that give you guidance on what you should do and how to mitigate the risks of a cyber attack. So it's good to see that, in my opinion, they're at least acknowledging the problem. So it's the
Right.
first step on getting a resolution.
The first step to solving a problem is acknowledging and admitting you have a problem.
There you go. There you go. Well, it has been a rough week for Amazon as well. The DC Attorney General sued Amazon on antitrust grounds, alleging it illegally raises prices. So, long story short, back in back before March of 2019, there was a provision in Amazon's business solutions agreement that basically said you couldn't offer your product for a lower price anywhere else except Amazon. And this was for all third-party sellers who were trying to sell their products on Amazon. And basically, DC had a issue with that. They removed that provision in March 2019, and now they're getting sued for it. So we will definitely see how that one pans out. I have noticed prices on Amazon, at least by me, going up a little bit, but um, I don't know. We'll have to see how this one plays out. In other news for Amazon, they are extending a moratorium on facial recognition software for police use. So, long story short, Amazon Web Services is a massive cloud giant, as we all know by this point if you've watched the show a couple times. But long story short, they have facial recognition technology that was being used by law enforcement departments to solve cases and monitor people and things and yada, yada, yada. Long story short, Amazon said, yeah, we're not going to do this, and basically just said, yeah, we're putting a moratorium on this. And a lot of activists just want it to be permanent. So we'll see what happens there. Not sure if you have any thoughts on this, Grislow.
Yeah, I think, well, it happened, at least the initial moratorium last June, I think, and that was kind of at the height of a lot of the craziness, at least in the United States, regarding police brutality. And I mean, Amazon responded and said that they didn't want to be a part of that sort of problem, and rescinded their technology. And I'm not sure if it's like an ethical thing, where Amazon sees that they've kind of created this, maybe they consider it like a beast or kind of a monster now, knowing how it can be used, and knowing its flaws as well. I can definitely see a sort of like regret in Amazon, kind of similar to the person who invented the nuke. Had some or I'm sorry, dynamite. It was dynamite. Nobel. So I see that sort of regret, and I understand it, especially if it doesn't fully work. Like it does say in the article, it struggles with, I believe it's different genders with some skin tones. That's problematic. I wouldn't be using that as in the police force if I knew it had issues. And so I'm glad that Amazon's extending that moratorium. If it gets better and the software does improve, I can possibly see Amazon rescinding that moratorium. But again, I do kind of see a sort of moral obligation that Amazon might be considering during this whole thing, that they don't, even if the software improves, they may not just want to kind of, I don't want to say add to the problem, but they don't want to be involved whatsoever in that sort of area. And so I understand, at least for where Amazon's coming from.
Definitely. Well, our next couple articles here are actually a couple updates for stories that we talked about last week. So, long story short, Anchor, the parent company of HiFi or whatever, apologized after 712 customers had camera feeds exposed to strangers. We talked about this a little bit last week. Long story short, people were seeing other people's cameras, which is no bueno. They issued an apology on Twitter, basically saying, hey, unplug, reconnect the camera, log out and log in again. And basically they said they use remote P2P access through AWS and encrypt everything. So long story short, they had no clue what happened, and they're trying to figure out what happened, but they remedied the problem. So I guess that's good. I don't like seeing this happen, but we live in a society where it does, unfortunately. So that's kind of all I have to say on that one.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it is disappointing to see when that happens. And I do believe that not only were they able to, the users have access, whether they wanted to or not, I suppose, to strangers' casts and feeds. They're also able to access some of the user's information, including emails, which is problematic.
Right.
Again, like you said, it's good that they acknowledge the problem and that it's fixed. At the time, I don't believe we knew the extent of the issue. I believe we had just mentioned that it was an issue in a report issue in Australia and the United States. Further investigation and in that release that they put out on Twitter, it was made public that not only was that an issue in the United States, but in Australia, but also in places like Argentina and the UK, and I believe 1 or 2 other countries. So it was a little more extensive than we initially had thought. 712 people, on the scale of 7 billion people on the planet is a very small number, but that is not good press. That's also just not good news. You never want that happening. As a consumer, I wouldn't want that happening with any of my products. If someone was able to randomly hear on my HomePod or any tap into Siri, I mean, they would be able to get anything that I say, which that's unnerving. And cameras are a step further. It's audio and video.
Right.
So yeah, it's good they fixed it. It's not too great that they didn't acknowledge or explain what the problem was. But I'm glad that they fixed it. And also, to be honest with you, I totally forgot about that because they had at least one semi-large product release in the last day or so. At least their sister or parent company, Anchor, about some new chargers. So I definitely had forgotten about it, and I'm sure they're trying to put this past
That's on purpose.
them by, yeah. But just glad it's
Who knows?
solved. Hopefully, I suppose. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed, indeed. Another story that we're going to give a little bit of an update on. We were talking about the Charlie Bit My Finger video. It sold for $761,000 as an NFT and is currently pending deletion according to the auction house. So, why do people pay for this?
This was one of the first viral videos on YouTube. It was.
But
It
why?
has history.
How is it worth $761,000?
I suppose. Well,
like I'm not getting a Picasso. I'm getting a video of a guy biting another guy's finger.
Well, I mean, this is one of the first internet viral videos, and I think there's definitely some value that comes along with it. I believe also in the auctioning they had included some sort of clause where it's almost like they not only own that video but also the IP that is associated with it, so that I suppose whoever owns this is giving away or is able to auction off some sort of thing where they're going to do a parody video and they're going to try and get some lucky winner to be featured in the video. So I don't know if that's part of the value, but I really do think, and I know you're probably confused, but this is seriously one of the first viral videos, not only on YouTube but on the internet. Because YouTube kind of pushed video onto the internet in a way in an amount, at least daily, that has never been seen before. I mean, they have, what is it, like something like days worth of content that's uploaded every minute or something. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, something like
that. But yeah, this is one of the first, if not the first, viral video on YouTube. It has history, and so I suppose with that comes value. I mean,
all right,
if you say Charlie bit me, that's a pretty, or bit my finger, everyone knows what you're talking about. It has some value because of exposure. It has sort of become sort of ingrained in the culture. So I see why it is worth as much as it is, and it's nice because those kids now are old enough. I believe it's 17 and 15,
correct,
or 17 and something else. So that money is going to be going towards these kids' colleges and any sort of costs that are incurred while in school. And as you and I know, college is expensive. It's a pretty penny. So that's really cool that the parents are putting that money towards the kids, and it's going to go for a good cause, right?
Right, definitely. Well, another thing cashing in on the NFT craze, never would have pulled it out of your behind. GameStop building an NFT platform on Ethereum. Who knows for what? who knows what it does? But long story short, basically they say they found a some job postings that GameStop is hiring like blockchain engineers, basically. So okay, we'll see what happens. I don't even
Yeah,
know what to say on this. It's such a cryptic article, and it's such an unknown right now that who who knows.
if you pop into the first link, that is the page that's up.
Oh,
So it's a
really?
page that, yeah,
Oh,
this is a page that
interesting.
GameStop put up. I also want to be the first to note that we are most definitely or likely one of the first tech podcasts to break this news. It came out like an hour or two ago. There haven't been new episodes of any other major tech podcasts that I've seen that have announced this news, especially because it's so breaking. So I just want to put that out there. This is breaking news. It's very cool. But yeah, who knows what GameStop's going to be doing with this? I mean, GameStop's having an interesting year. Their stock's been going up like wild, like crazy, kind of tied in this kind of sort of meme stock culture we're seeing this year. And they're slowly becoming, irrelevant and trying to find ways to stay relevant. And I'm sure that this is going to be part of their big company strategy moving forward. And we'll see what happens. Maybe they could be doing stuff with they could be partnering with game studios to put out exclusive content with their game releases. They could be doing stuff with their stores with different offers. We'll see what happens.
We'll see.
At least I'll say with this specific situation with NFTs, I can at least envision some applications of it and them really benefiting from it. So yeah, this is a practical use of NFTs, or at least a hopeful use of NFTs, or an unknown use of NFTs for a company that kind of needs a pivot point, and or at least another add on to their model. So
Right.
we'll see what happens going forward, especially since this is a 2 hour old
Oh, yeah.
development.
I mean, you can do a lot with an NFT, and I'd love to see GameStop making themselves into, and maybe even an NFT marketplace. Who knows? And it'll be very cool to see how this develops. We will definitely keep an eye on this. And props to our show here for being first to break this news to you in on YouTube in podcast format, as far as I can tell.
It
So
would it would also be really funny as a final point here, if they developed a sort of resale NFT market to see some of the valuations on these NFTs going down. The 760,000 or 761,000 Charlie Bit My Finger NFT, selling for $20.
you actually bring up a great point, because GameStop's entire business model for a long time was used games. So used NFTs? Who
Yeah, reselling
knows?
NFTs, I
Yeah.
could definitely see them going into that, especially because they're sort of already in the resale market right now. With the current offering or price offer they're able to give customers on their consoles and equipment and discs, games. We'll see what happens with the NFTs. We'll see how long they hold their value, if they're willing to fork over a little more. As I guess you can say that NFTs typically are more of an investment as opposed to like a game that's like a depreciating asset. But we'll see.
We will definitely see that. That is for sure. Some of the other things that, speaking of stonks and crypto and all that stuff, Bitcoin was dropping below 32,000 for a point over the weekend here, and well, fell roughly 16% to $31,772.43 by 12:27 p.m. Eastern time over the weekend. And yikes, that's all I can say on that. Bitcoin, I'm not exactly sure where it's sitting right now. Let's find out actually. BTC to USD. Okay, it's at like $38,000. It still is a little down, but you could definitely see that dip there a little bit. So we'll see. Hopefully that recovers. We'll love to see what's going on with that.
Yeah, there's a reason why I don't have any money in Bitcoin, or any cryptocurrency for that matters, because how volatile it is, and how much it can go up and down in a weekend. It
Exactly, exactly.
Cryptocurrency went up and down when Elon Musk was hosting SNL, and if that's all it takes for you to lose a cool, good amount of money, then that's not really for me.
Yeah, that's 16% it was down, which
That's a good
is,
amount.
yeah, that's risky, and you get into that
and
when you get in crypto. So
and the fact that it still really is down. It's only up another what $5,000 or so from where it had crashed to this weekend. So
it peaked in
yeah,
April at $65,000, and it was down at its lowest point recently to $31,000. It still says it's up 268% in the past year, according to Coinbase. So we'll see.
yeah.
We'll
If
see.
you're a long-term investor, or at least you held on to Bitcoin for a long time, um, I guess the choice is up to you whether or not you want to sell it now if you think it's only going to go down and you want to reap the benefits of your long-term investment, especially with this year's big boom in Bitcoin. If you're a new investor and you're looking at crypto and you're not in it yet, I would not suggest you buy now,
We are
only
not
because
financial advisors. Obligatory
and we
statement
are
here.
not financial advisors, but I would say don't buy now only because it's so volatile. And as someone who doesn't own any cryptocurrency, I can point to this, and not even just this one dip, and really good dip too, to explain why. Do your research, do your homework. Don't go into this stuff willy nilly, because you got a lot to lose, especially with a big dip like this. Yes, we are not financial advisors. Thank you, Fitz. But yeah, just be careful.
Definitely. Well, speaking of going into things willy nilly, Google decided to go into retail willy nilly. Microsoft went into retail and software. Google decided to open a store. They're going to be opening a retail store where we'll sell phones and other gadgets to open this summer in the Chelsea neighborhood of New York City. Um, so yeah, cool, I guess. I don't see why Google needs to have a store for their like four things they make, but sure, have at it. Uh, we'll see. Sure. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting just because at least with this year, last 2 years, we've kind of seen a departure for some companies, chiefly Microsoft, for pulling out of the brick and mortar game, and not having physical stores where people can go and see their products. And like you said, Google doesn't really make a ton. They've got their Pixel, they've got, I believe, the Fitbit stuff, the Nest products. Other than that, I mean, that's a small section or two sections at a Best Buy. It's not really a full store's worth of things.
right.
Um, if they're trying to really challenge Apple, I guess we'll find out. This is going to be their first brick and mortar store. But especially with the pandemic and people shopping online, I don't really know if a big push into brick and mortar is a good financial investment for a company, or a good business model, or new business model for Google. I suppose Amazon, you could say, it has gone into the brick and mortar game now with their in and out stores, the grocery stores, but they're not selling products in those stores, or at least they're not really only there to sell their Amazon products. I haven't gone in the one. I'm not quite sure. I think you've been to one, right?
Yeah, I've been to one of the Amazon Fresh stores. They're really cool, actually. We should talk about that maybe in another episode. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
yeah.
super cool. It's a grocery
But yeah,
store that has Amazon stuff. Woo.
yeah. But the brick and mortar model, I think, is kind of a dying breed, especially for companies that don't start out as brick and mortar stores. Google is a software company. At least they started as a software company. They do hardware, absolutely, and they're doing more of it. But I'm not sure if a brick and mortar store for them is really necessary. Especially, like, don't they have sections, especially like in, for example, Best Buy, where you can go and see their products, where they have
I
someone
believe
that's sort of
so.
like
They
a
have
Google rep?
I think so. I mean, even at like your your all around stores, they have like little Google like displays that show basically what they make, which is like a condensed version of the store, basically from what it sounds like. Like they have like the Fitbit, they have the Google Home, they have like an Android tablet or something like that in this little cubby basically. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing about all of this, aside from the fact of, or aside from trying to see where they go in the future and how this one store does fare, is the fact that they are very nearby an Apple store. Um, they're not too far from one, and they do compete with them in the phone market. So I guess we'll see if that sort of impacts their sales versus the Apple Store sales, or the Apple Store sales tank in terms of their phones because they now have a competitor down the street. I don't think so. I really don't think that's going to be the case. I don't think one store in a very specific location is going to impact them much at all. And I really do not think it's going to lead to a big rollout of retail stores. Apple is kind of the chief at the tech specific company that has their own retail stores and does it very well. We'll see how Google does it.
Right. Definitely. Definitely. I'll be interested to see how if it works out for them. I'm not holding on to a lot of hope, but whatever.
Yeah.
So in other
I guess the
oh,
one, well, sorry, I didn't mean to cut
go
you off,
ahead.
but the one thing I think is cool is that they'll be offering sort of maintenance and stuff and tech support for some of their products. So I do see that as a good benefit to having a brick and mortar store. I mean, Apple has their Genius Bar set up. It's very nice. It's very intuitive. It works very well. And it's very easy for someone who has issues to go into a store and have their product looked at and do a little troubleshooting. So I can see that is a good plus, but specifically because they are in the smartphone business, to have their own company reps there and people from Google able to help them directly with their own products. But again, I'm not sure if they really need a full store for that.
Right. We'll see. We will
That's all
definitely
I got.
see.
Sorry.
There you go. In
Just something I wanted
other
to mention, but I forgot.
no worries. In other Google news, Google had I/O 2021, and they made a lot of announcements. They're trying to be carbon free 24/7 by 3030. Okay, let's see that happen. Project Starline basically is like a full size video teleconferencing thing with people generated by 3D imaging. Interesting. We'll go into that in a little soon. Derm Assist, it's like, what is this thing on my skin? And you scan it with your phone or something. Some color correction fixing for the camera. I know Ryan will want to talk about that, so we'll leave that for next time. Some Wear OS updates, integrations with Android, where you could use basically your phone to control your TV. Android 12 finally coming along, which will be great. Some little tiny machine learning stuff that they've done, some stuff with their shopping, maps, AR, yada, 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 privacy stuff, and just kind of some quantum research that they've been doing, which is really cool. So, a lot of cool updates. We're definitely going to keep an eye on this, go into a little more detail in the next video here on Tech Talk Nation. In some other news, a couple rapid fire articles from Tesla here. Tesla is going to be removing radar sensors from their cars. They're actually already shipping cars without radar sensors. And this is due to Elon Musk basically being like, hey, we don't want to be solely reliant on radar. I want us to be solely reliant on cameras and all this stuff. Okay, interesting. I would prefer radar personally as a second source. Not sure how you feel on that one, Grislow.
Yeah, so they're rolling this out on the Model 3 and the Model Y exclusively right now.
Wait a
And I believe
second.
that
Amazon's listening. They're listening. But
well, there really only has been negative coverage in this episode, but I suppose they're listening. I guess we're gonna have to use some more Apple products so that they don't track us too much here
yeah, there we go.
on the show. But yeah, so they're going to be rolling this out for exclusively with the Model 3 and Model Y. I think a big reason for that is because that's the bulk of their sales. And so they want to roll this out on those vehicles so that they're better able to get better data and more data with the more mass market vehicles that they sell, so that they can improve the technology and do a better job rolling it out on their more expensive models, which I think is smart. I would also be a little hesitant as someone who is buying a Model 3 or Y, if they're only rolling it out on these vehicles and not the other ones. There's a reason, but yeah, I don't really know how I feel about them switching over in the technology. I didn't really quite understand why, other than I'm not wanting to really be dependent on that feature. So it's called, I believe the new one is called Tesla Vision. And it's what they're calling their new auto drive features that have this new camera technology. And also they will be restricting some of these features, or the features that they would typically have on these cars, but rolling them out, or I guess unlocking them via software updates in the coming months. So features that would typically be not, or would be used, are kind of disabled right now, and they'll be re-enabled in the future. Again, another reason why I would kind of be concerned, or at least kind of annoyed as a consumer if I was in the market for one of these. But
Definitely.
say la vie.
Say
So
la vie. There you go. In other Tesla news, say la vie, Elon Musk wants to strap a rocket to the back of a Tesla Roadster to go from 0 to 60 in 1.1 seconds.
hell yeah.
Would be a full second faster than any existing production car right now. And then the article says it is unclear how Musk will develop a street legal rocket boosted car. Okay, Elon, nice job. Let's see it happen. That is
Yeah.
my stance on this article right here.
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason why that they're not really sure how they're going to implement it is mostly because they're not really sure how they're going to test it, because there aren't currently any testing regulations, restrictions, or ways to verify that this will be good for street legal cars. So this is a car that's been in development, or at least has been released and been known about for about 4 years now. And it seems like it's not going to be coming anytime sooner, especially when the government now has to develop new testing procedures and policies for this vehicle. Nonetheless, this is going to be a really cool vehicle, this SpaceX package with their rockets. I believe it's going to
Rocket
be
thruster
like,
option package.
yep, I believe it's going to be like
Okay.
an array of rockets around the car, which again sounds just crazy. What this is supposed to be their kind of crazy car, right? The Roadster is supposed to be their fast car, so we'll see how this works. He does mention that if you have any medical issues, you might not want to use this, especially because the amount of thrust and G-force you will feel is far upwards of what you would typically feel. Estimates were around 2.5 Gs, but we'll see what actually happens. And when this comes out, I'm sure people are going to put this to the test and really try this out to the max.
Jeez, yeah, we will definitely have to see this one. Last Tesla story we got for you today is Tesla found guilty in Norway of throttling charging speed and asked to pay $16,000 to thousands of Tesla owners. Long story short, only Model X were a Model X and Model X vehicles with 85 kilowatt battery packs, which were discontinued in 2016, were affected. And long story short, it just kind of tanked their range. So rip to them. It'll be interesting because this is the first kind of like worldwide kind of result here, or excuse me, verdict here. Um, Definitely going to have to see how this works for a lot of other courts throughout the rest of the world.
Yeah, I believe there's a lawsuit right now in California, or there was like class action lawsuit that was started. And so this is certainly something that's not new. And in the article actually that they had pulled up there was a person, one of the owners of one of these vehicles, was charting his battery capacity. And if you open it and look at the chart, you can very clearly see around the time where this new feature and software update went out, and his range absolutely plummeted. You can very clearly see where that's affected. And so, yes, it was obviously a software thing. It's something that a lot of companies, not just Tesla, has struggled with privately and publicly. Apple being a very infamous perpetrator of this sort of issue, especially with some of their older phones trying to draw performance out of their phones. So having issues with the battery, and now Tesla is another company that's coming under fire for doing the same thing, but still under the same guise and under the sort of statements of, we were trying to preserve battery, we were trying to extend the life of the battery, but ultimately it just leaves the consumer unhappy. And especially when you do that without saying anything, that causes a lot of problems. And it sounds like it's going to be a $16,000 per user problem for Tesla once they have to pay all these people.
Definitely. And to be fair, this graph is a little misrepresentative of the actual difference. This, like, the bottom here is 215 and the top is 265, so you only have like what, a 50-mile difference in this entire range. But still, 50 miles is 50 miles. That's a lot. So
Right.
we will definitely see how Tesla is able to recover from this, and see if this affects any verdicts throughout the rest of the world.
Absolutely.
Well, the last article we have for you tonight, you may be wondering, I drive an electric. What the heck does that mean? Well, Grislow was nice enough to send in this article, and I had to make it the feature of the show, just because I thought it was hilarious. So, without further ado, the first electric Pope Mobile will be a Fisker Ocean SUV. And I absolutely love this, like, really, really crappily photoshopped image in TechCrunch of the little Pope box on the back of a Fisker SUV. I think this is hilarious. And basically, they're going to plan to deliver this vehicle to the Vatican late next year, and it will be based on the Fisker Ocean SUV. And basically, Pope Francis and Henrik Fisker just kind of sat down and were like, "Yeah, here, we're gonna make you a Pope Mobile," and he's like, "Awesome." So we will see. But that's that's some news. That's for sure. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's interesting with the choice that they made, that the Vatican made with that specific car maker. With Fisker, they haven't been around that long, so they hadn't really proven themselves. In fact, they kind of started out as more of a luxury electric vehicle
Boutique.
company.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so to see them go into this new deal with the Vatican is interesting, at least from like a Catholic perspective. You know, I suppose one of the teachings is, you want to be a steward of the earth. You want to take care of what the greater guy above us has given us, and so I suppose it makes sense that the Pope Mobile is going to be electrified. It goes with sort of the teachings of the church. Also, it's just kind of the way that life and things are going, right? Everything's being electrified, so it makes sense the Pope has an electric vehicle. I'm not sure if we'll ever see, I suppose, like an electrified beast, the car that carries the president. But this is, I suppose, a start for major world leaders or major world figures being carried around and bussed around in these electric cars. I'm not a huge fan of Fisker, only because they don't really put out much, and their cars are sort of expensive compared to some of the other consumer or more affordable electric vehicles. Nonetheless, I think this is a kind of cool thing. Like you said, the Photoshop job's pretty funny,
Right.
and I'm sure it's going to look a little better than that. But typically, I will say the Pope Mobiles look a little out there sometimes.
Yeah.
Only
That
out of
is
necessity, though.
exactly. And this article is actually pretty interesting. It says Pope Francis has been known to use a Ford Focus to drive around Vatican City, and that Fisker is aiming to start the production of this SUV to have a base price of $37,499 on November of 2022. So we will definitely see. And I mean, I'd like to see if when this works out. I mean, see Pope Francis rolling around in a Fisker. Who would have thunk? So
Yeah, well, I mean that price is definitely a little more affordable, and definitely within the range of the more affordable Teslas. But yeah, we'll see. Yeah, like I said, typically those Pope mobiles are the kind of monstrosities, lab monstrosities of whatever the donor car was.
right.
So we'll see how this actually does look and how much they have to transform this car to meet the I don't know what they call them, the Vatican police or the Pope Secret Service's standards for security.
They have a name for them. I forget what it was, but
do they really?
Yeah. What? Let's see. Pope.
I know that it's not too far off in the rendering for the Pope to be in like a glass box, or at least some sort of walled structure, see-through
the
structure.
Swiss Guard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the Swiss Guard. The duty of protecting the Pope, defending Vatican City, and providing police and security services within its territory. Thank you, Wikipedia.
Is that like from Switzerland then? Those guards? Because the Vatican is technically its own entity.
I don't know, actually.
Fun fact, actually, I found this out today. With probably 5 other major football stadiums, you can also fit the entirety of the Vatican inside of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway's track. So yeah,
who'd have thunk?
You can fit the Vatican and a lot more. In fact, you could probably fit, I think, 2 and some change Vaticans inside the Speedway, with the race happening this weekend. Which, of course, me being out of state, I wasn't really privy to that. In our call this morning for the team, they started talking about the race, and I said, okay, I guess I'm gonna have to be the new guy about this. What race are you talking about? And I should have known. I'm in Indiana. I should have known that they were specifically talking about the race, the one and only Indy 500, of which there'll be 40% capacity, I believe, and even that is well over 100,000 people, with the total capacity of the stadium being somewhere around, I believe, 257,000 people. It's the biggest sporting venue, I believe, anywhere, and of course, one of the biggest sporting events ever out there every
Definitely.
year.
Imagine,
but yeah, that's how small the Vatican is and how big the Indy 500 is.
Imagine how many Fisker Pope mobiles you could fit in there. Who knows? If somebody wants to do the math, leave it in the comments. Maybe it'll give me something to do when I'm bored or can't fall asleep or something. Who knows? Well, anyway, that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you to Grislow for coming. Once again, always a pleasure. Thank you for being here. And we will be back next week with more Tech Talk Nation. So have a great week, and we will see you then.
Thanks, Fitz. Always a pleasure.
All right. Oh, there's the browser. I should probably close the show. Alrighty, well, anyway, let's try this again. Have a great week, everybody. And I clicked the wrong button in the broadcasting software, so don't do that. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you back here next week.
Thank you for listening to Tech Talk Nation. Tune in next week for more discussion on the latest in tech.